welcome back to the Gardening with Joe and Holly radio show. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your day-to-day. Moments away, we're going to discuss food storage without canning. But first, a word from our bee-friendly friends at Honeybee Healthy.
Since 2000, Honeybee Healthy Inc. has helped beekeepers maintain healthy and thriving hives. Attracting pollinators to your garden this year is as simple as hanging a hummingbird feeder with a mixture of sugar water and Honeybee Healthy Original. Don't be alarmed to see birds, bees, and butterflies dining together at the feeder. Pollinators coexist peacefully. Honeybee Healthy Inc. is offering a 10% discount on an 8-ounce bottle of Honeybee Healthy Original to this show's listeners. Enter discount code BEGARDEN, that's BEGARDEN at checkout. For more information, mixing instructions, you can go to honeybeehealthy.com.
And you can do that year-round. Birds eat year-round, and bees as well. So keep that in mind, and coupon codes all at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com under the Money tab at the top of the page. So you're harvesting out of your garden. You got a plethora of different items, and some of you, and there's nothing wrong with this, some of you choose not to water bath or pressure can your produce. Nothing wrong with that. Those who do pressure can and water bath your canning, your produce, you may want to look at other avenues, as we're going to discuss. But real quick, for educational purposes, so everybody understands, we're not going to get into water bath and or pressure canning, but what is the difference and what are the criteria that each one of those represent, and possibly why people may want to choose an alternate method of storing their produce, Holly?
Sure. So water bath canning is for high acid foods like fruit. Fruit is commonly high acid, or if you're adding an acid or sugar to a fruit or vegetable. So for example, like pickled beets, dilly beans, salsa, pasta
corn
sauce,
salsa.
corn salsa. You're adding acid, vinegar, sugar, etc. to those items,
Making it safe.
So that's what water bath canning is. And then pressure canning is for the more low acid foods, and then meats. So those are when you want to can like carrots or potatoes, just regular corn, regular beans, etc.
Salmon, venison, beef. So, okay. So there is some alternative. I mean, what would be a reason why somebody would choose hey, I really don't want to can. There's
Maybe they don't
reasons.
want to do the whole process. Maybe they don't want to. They have plenty of freezer space. They just don't want to deal with canning. They would rather just...
And nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with this.
Yeah. So the first one is freezing. So a lot of times you'll see recipes for like freezer jam. That's an option. Also freezing and blanching your vegetables. We do this with our green beans. Blanching or parboiling is when you kind of boil the vegetables for about a minute and then put them into a cold water shock bath. And this helps maintain their integrity, shape. I don't know what you want to say, so that when you pull it out of the freezer, it's not like vegetable mush, unless you're into that. So for example, like if you froze broccoli as is without blanching it, it would become broccoli mush after you pull it out of the freezer.
It's like when you freeze a tomato and then pull it out of the freezer, it just flattens.
Yeah. Now some people do choose to freeze their tomatoes that way, and then they choose to can them or just make a sauce like on the randomly and make the sauce that day.
Right, and they'll freeze the tomatoes and then can in the winter, so they're not heating their house in the summer.
Yes,
they've got a system down.
Yeah.
But freezing, what is freezer jam?
Freezer jam is just basically jam made to be frozen, and a lot of times you don't have to use pectin. You can just kind of cook down the fruit with some sugar, and then you freeze it, and then
you freeze it for storage. But whenever you want to use it, you remove it and put it in the fridge and use it in a timely manner. Otherwise, it will spoil.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we have
cold storage
or root cellar. So I don't know much about root cellars.
Root cellars are basically, from what I understand, and somebody can correct me at gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Root cellars are basically small basements underneath old homes. And then there's, cisterns? Where the water collects off the roof into a basin in the basement, and that is used to for the water of the house. It's very old, but very creative way of utilizing. So basically, a root cellar is okay. A root cellar is also somebody modern days may take and dig an underground chamber and line it with concrete, or like for people who are not familiar, like a tornado shelter in the South, in Texas and Oklahoma, where it's a stairway underground and it's 5 or 10 feet underground, and you can store all of your stuff. It's got shelving. There's old pictures online of these root cellars that are packed to the brim of canned goods and pumpkins and all and pears and apples. It's a technique in which the majority of society has either never heard of or has forgotten about.
There you go. So you can
do it. You can do it in a basement.
Yeah, you can mimic this by basement, maybe an attic,
unclimatized basement,
unclimatized attic.
Well, the issue with the attic is
it could get really hot.
You got to figure out when you can go up and put it. Otherwise, it will turn into a sauna and not good. But an unclimatized basement in a corner, you can shelve and put a lot of stuff. But just because you put a pumpkin or squash or apples or pears in the basement in an unclimatized area where it is a consistent fill in the blank 45 degrees and lower humidity, there's still spoilage that happens, and you've got to be aware of that with the conditions that are down there and the requirements in which to have the proper humidity, or adding a dehumidifier to get that humidity to a specific level in order for best longevity of this produce in which you're putting down there. Not the canned jars, but the squashes and the pumpkins and apples and pears and those type of items.
Right. So, so that's the root cellar, cold storage, basements, whatever you want to call it. Now, fridge storage, this is another thing too. A lot of people will store their root vegetables, especially in their fridge. And when you do that, what I would recommend is not cleaning them off. Just whatever is dirt on them, leave them on there.
Cabbage lasts a long time. Beets last a long time. Carrots last a long time. Yes.
Yes. So these are things that you don't necessarily need to can. You can put them in your fridge and they will last for quite some time.
Now with carrots and beets, you can take like a wooden box and layer sand and put the sand around each item, and that's a longevity method. Real quick, back to the storage in the root cellar, the basement storage. We see, and many of you are familiar, that you see this online, the preppers, and there's nothing wrong for being prepared. Our grandparents, this was life. We got to prepare for the, because there wasn't I want a pineapple on Christmas Day, let's just go down to the big box store and pick up a pineapple. It was preparation, storage, plan the next seed. You read these things about, so and so on this post, got all the hundreds of canning jars and they're on shelves and they're real pretty, and you'll see comments underneath, well, they're ready for a natural disaster. Way to go. Be aware of where you put your canning jars.
Yeah.
On a shelf, because a natural disaster could be an earthquake, and when an earthquake shakes a shelf and there's no guardrail on that shelf, what's on the shelf goes to the floor, and all those cans that fall or glass, and you're going to have all that preparation on the floor, and you're not going to have anything when that disaster happens. You can put them on shelves and you put a little railing around it to keep them from vibrating off during something like an earthquake. Continue.
Okay, so the food storage, another one would be vacuum pack, seal. Now, this is something that you may actually have to freeze. I don't know a ton about vacuum packing, but some people will also freeze dry items, which I know is a different method than just dehydrating. Oh, that's what I was going with, was dehydrating, and then there's freeze drying. So both of those will help your food because you're removing that moisture.
In different methods.
Yep. And then when you vacuum pack it, it removes the air. So this can make things stable. I know a lot of people who do backpacking will do this. They'll cook the food, they'll dehydrate it, and then they'll vacuum seal it, and then it makes it nice and light. And when they're on the trail, they can reconstitute it with water, and then it becomes whatever it was. So like chili or some sort of rice dish or pasta, etc. So that is another option, is freeze drying or dehydrating and then vacuum packing it?
Dehydrating, you're introducing a heat in order to remove the moisture from the item. Freeze drying is a process that removes water from the material by turning it into an ice to vaporizing a vapor from ice to vapor without going through a liquid state. The process is also used to preserve perishable materials such as food and extend its shelf life by decades. So it's a different method. It's a much longer shelf life than a dehydrated method. But also in order to freeze dry, there is a specific item or unit in which has to be purchased that's can be much more, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So that's just something if you're not aware of freeze drying. You can buy freeze dried items in the big box stores like candies and fruits, but they are quite pricey for a very small quantity.
Correct.
All right. Do we have any more there?
Just sometimes people will pack things like garlic and oil. I don't know how long the shelf stable is for, but the thought is that you're packing in oil and then it kind of, the fat in the oil helps it become more shelf stable.
And prevents air from getting to it. Yeah.
So that's an option as well. And then another one is just keeping in mind that a lot of these vegetables, like example for garlic, you want to keep it in a cool, dry place and out of direct sunlight, and it's going to last longer. In that case, our garlic has lasted us like 6 to
9 months.
8 months. Yeah, 6 to 9 months. So that's an option, a thought as well, is that if you do need to keep something, then you can't keep it in the fridge. Keeping it away from direct sunlight or a heat source is going to make it last longer than if it's in, a heat source.
Well, summer is getting close to being over, Holly, and the kids are now back in school. And in some parts of the country, the nights are getting colder and longer. However, you maybe have forgotten about your yard, and you should not have.
Just because it's fall, we don't want to forget about our yards and those Japanese beetles either. They may be gone, but they're not far. Not only did they feast on your roses and berries this summer, they laid eggs in your turf so you can start again next year. Take a stand with Phylum's Grub Gone. Grub Gone is a non-chemical BT product that actually specifically targets scarab pests and their larvae. Simply apply the granule with a spreader, irrigate it into the soil, and let the naturally occurring bacteria do its job.
Not only does Grub Gone work and it's easy to use, but it's non-chemical choice and effective to the non-chemical choice to effectively control those grubs. The best part about it, it is non-toxic to bees and other beneficial pollinators and insects such as ladybugs and butterflies. In fact, Grub Gone has no label restrictions to be used around flowering plants, so you don't have to worry about harming those insects. You can find all this out at grubgone.com from the parent company Phylum Bioproducts, the natural choice.